A sharpened blade hangs 10 feet above our boy, casting a cold shadow over his final moments. Looking up with those weary green eyes, he feels a darkness looming over his very soul. He remembers standing tall with a blade of his own, back before everything went south. Now pinned under the wood, he's left dumbfounded by how his life reached this pathetic dead end. The crowd whispers about fall, but they know speaking up means losing their own heads. Up on the balcony, Duke Kais watches the show, relishing the downfall of a former peer. The commoners realize the only way to survive this era is to stay quiet and stay out of sight. As war consumes the continent, the execution of a noble is just another grim spectacle for the masses. Crows circle the gallows, cawing at the scent of death that has become far too common lately. This cycle of bloodshed began in the East, where the Red Knight turned the world into a hellscape. The noble house of Marbas finally crumbles, leaving our boy as just another victim of this trash-tier war. On stares blankly, his green eyes reflecting the absolute despair of a man who has lost everything. He closes his eyes in silence, finally accepting that fate is about to collect a heavy, bloody debt. High above the square, the strong whisper amongst themselves, proving that power allows them to do as they wish. For the commoners watching from the shadows, every single day is a desperate gamble just to stay alive. They stand frozen and sweating, knowing that speaking up would only put their own necks on the line. Pinned under the heavy wood, prepares for his final grim dance with death in the public square. A cold, calculating gaze watches the scene, relishing the moment the gates of hell finally swing open. Count Alan de Sylvester smirks, satisfied that his long-standing rival is finally being erased from the world. The blade hangs ready in the air as the signal is given for the show to finally commence. The crowd's uneasy murmurs fill the air as they witness the final moments of a once great noble house. Our boy stands there in silence, his back turned to the world that has already abandoned him. Count Alan de Sylvester grows impatient, demanding to know why the grim spectacle hasn't started yet. On's legs begin to wobble under the crushing weight of despair as he grips the cold steel. His hands tremble violently, the reality of his situation finally sinking in as he holds the blade. Pinned against the wood, the victim waits for the shadow of the blade to take their life. The Count lets out a trash-tier laugh, mocking the boy and ordering him to just cut the rope. Every step toward the edge feels like a mile as he trudges forward with a heavy heart. He looms over the mechanism, the thick rope representing the thin line between life and a bloody death. On raises the knife with a hollow expression, forced to trigger the descent into hell. The crowd watches in absolute horror as the tension finally reaches a breaking point. Count Alan de Sylvester just leans in with a trash-tier smirk, savoring every second of the misery. With a final desperate motion, our boy slices through the rope, sealing a fate he never wanted. The heavy blade drops with a sickening thud, echoing like a butcher's cleaver through the silent square. Warm crimson splatters across face, turning his pale skin into a macabre canvas of guilt. He stands there dumbfounded, the metallic stench of iron filling his lungs as the reality sets in. His hands are stained forever, the cold steel slipping from his grasp as he realizes what he's done. Every drop on the floor feels like a lead weight, anchoring him to this nightmare of his own making. He forced himself to cut the ties between his father and the living world just to survive. As the head of Run von Marba rolls away, the legacy of his house is officially severed. Leon accepts his grim, new identity as the son of a dead man and a cold-blooded kinslayer. His eyes reflect the hollow weight of a boy who just butchered his own blood to survive. In this world, being a patriarch means more than just surviving. It means becoming a nation's pillar. The title carries a heavy burden, marking him as a high-ranking aristocrat responsible for his people's fate. As the old saying goes, the crown is a heavy burden that only the strongest can truly bear. Years pass, and our boy transforms into a stoic leader, ready to face the crushing weight of authority. The room is thick with tension as his advisors watch their new lord with a mix of expectation. Leon officially takes his seat as the head of House Marba. Though the shadows of his past remain, one vassal shouts that House Sylvester is encroaching, demanding a swift and decisive military response from their lord. The other nobles join the fray, desperate for Lion to finally make a move before their enemies strike. One of the old-timers insists that our boy finally give the council a straight answer. Lion has had enough of their constant bickering and shuts the conversation down immediately. He stands up and tells the room he requires more time to ponder their demands. The vassals are dumbfounded, claiming this delay only spells disaster for their once great house. Ignoring their desperate pleas, Leon turns his back on the political circus and walks away. As he wanders the halls, he reflects on the bloody demise of his father, Rune. It is a heavy crown for a kid who became the patriarch at only 14 years old. He remembers when House Marbus was feared for necromancy, a reputation now lost to time. Our boy suddenly stops in his tracks when he reaches the portraits of his parents. He looks up at them, silently, acknowledging the ghosts of the mother and father he lost. Leon wonders what his parents would have him do in their place during these dark times. He knows the dead can't speak, yet he's still desperate for a shred of guidance. Our boy walks toward the heavy doors, obsessed with restoring his family's lost glory and prosperity. He stops and glances up at the legacy he is desperately trying to uphold. This is Welyn von Marbus, the legendary figure who started the entire bloodline. He was the founding progenitor and the only true necromancer the continent had ever seen. Leon recalls how the house first rose to prominence through absolute dominance on the battlefield. But since those glory days, the lineage has failed to produce another master of the dark arts. This lack of power sent the family fortune spiraling down a path of pathetic trash-tier decline. Leon lets out a heavy sigh. Feeling the crushing weight of a dying legacy on his shoulders, Leon reaches for the handle, haunted by the memory of being forced to end his own father's life. He enters the private study, the heavy door creaking as he steps into the sanctuary of his ancestors. Our boy approaches the desk, his eyes fixed on the ancient records that hold his family's dark secrets. He places a weary hand on the chronicles, desperate to find a way to save his failing house. He thinks of Welyn, the legendary progenitor who once wielded magic like a lethal, world-ending tempest. Back then, the Marbus name meant an unstoppable death march of undead legions that crushed every single foe. In just 2 months, Welyn had subjugated the entire eastern region, standing as the continent's undisputed sovereign. Legend says he struck a forbidden pact with the devil Marbus to unlock the ultimate mysteries of death. This unholy union birthed the Necronomicon, a dread tome containing the absolute secrets of high-tier necromancy. Leon stares at the book, wondering if he has the strength to reclaim that terrifying godlike power. Leon stares at the Necronomicon, the legendary tome that once made his family the sole masters of death. He carefully flips the ancient pages, hoping to find a spark of hope within the forbidden text. Suddenly, our boy freezes when a mysterious voice echoes through the room, addressing him as the young patriarch. He is completely dumbfounded that a telepathic message could even reach him inside this high-tier anti-magic field. Leon scans the empty office, cautiously asking the unseen entity to reveal its true identity. A sinister red aura swirls around him as the voice promises it poses no threat to his kin. Before he can react, a massive ritual circle erupts beneath his feet, surging with overwhelming ancient power. He grits his teeth, trying to keep his composure as the heavy pressure of the magic weighs him down. Sweat beads on his face while he looks up, sensing a presence far beyond any trash-tier human mage. Towering over him is the devil Marbus itself, the very source of his family's dark and bloody legacy. Leon finds himself in a strange void, wondering where the hell he has been transported to this time. The massive beast asks if his predecessor kept its existence a secret, making Leon realize it means his father. The devil Marbus confirms it felt the mana thread connecting them snap, signaling that Rune is finally gone. It growls in frustration, admitting Rune was always too soft-hearted to lead such a dark, high-tier family. Looking down at our boy, the entity demands to know who exactly delivered the killing blow to its contractor. Leon's throat twitches as he prepares to admit the cold truth about the man who ended his father's life. He stands tall and confesses that he, the son of the house, was the one who did the deed. The beast lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very foundations of the mental space they inhabit. Even as the pressure threatens to crush him, Leon holds his ground while the demon prepares to strike. The creature snarls, asking one last time if this puny human truly killed its legendary oath-bound partner. Leon doesn't flinch as he confirms he is exactly the person the beast is looking for. With eyes glowing with a grim resolve, our boy admits he was the one who murdered his father. The massive entity looms over him, demanding that he repeat that impossible claim one more time. The creature snarls in disbelief, questioning if a mere human truly slew its legendary, oath-bound contractor. Without a hint of hesitation, Leon repeats the cold truth that he ended the previous patriarch's life. He takes full ownership of the deed, accepting the weight of the blood currently staining his soul. The demon's eye glints with a terrifying light as it processes the sheer audacity of this young noble. Suddenly, the beast lunges forward, its primal fury threatening to tear Leon's very consciousness apart. Despite the overwhelming pressure, our boy stands firm while the mental landscape begins to warp and scream. The memory of the ritual knife and the blood on his hands flashes back, grounding his grim determination. Leon is barely holding on as the weight of his sins starts to manifest physically around him. The beast claims that while Leon cut the rope, he isn't the true killer of his father. Our boy stays silent, knowing the truth is far more complicated than simple guilt or innocence. The demon lets out a dark chuckle, intrigued by the boy's refusal to deny the blood on his hands. It senses something terrifyingly familiar, yet deeper, an abyssal aura lurking right beneath Lion's noble exterior. The creature is stunned that a mere child could harbor such a massive, suffocating reserve of magical force. As he takes a step, the very ground ripples with the weight of his dark, burgeoning power. Standing atop a mountain of spectral corpses, Lion's presence begins to eclipse the ancient demon's own shadow. The entity is completely dumbfounded, realizing the situation has spiraled far beyond its initial expectations. It sees the legendary progenitor's spirit in him. Fearing Lion might actually surpass the house's greatest ancestor, the ancient entity clears its throat. Preparing to drop some heavy lore on our boy, it finally introduces itself as Marbus, the namesake of the very house Lion now leads. Turns out he is one of the 72 demons of hell, who ditched the underworld for humanity. He was actually the lifelong friend of Wellen, acting as the original source for the family's necromancy. Leon remains unfazed, admitting that he recognizes the legendary creature from the old family tales. He knows this beast was the one who taught their progenitor the forbidden secrets of the dark arts. The demon confirms his identity, explaining he is now bound to the Necronomicon despite his former power. Our boy calls him the Black Lion, recalling how his ancestors claimed this magic was in their blood. The entity stares back with glowing eyes, acknowledging the deep ancestral connection between them. However, Lion is still skeptical, wondering how such a powerful being ended up in this pathetic state. Leon asks point blank if the legendary beast simply decided to forsake his family in the end. The demon looks down, wondering what on earth gave our boy such a ridiculous notion. Leon points out that since their progenitor Wellen, House Marba has failed to produce anyone worth a damn. He views this pathetic lack of talent as a clear sign that the entity has completely abandoned them. The Black Lion prepares to set the record straight, staring right through the young patriarch's soul. He explains the real problem is that Lion's kin were all too weak to provide a fitting vessel. Our boy is left dumbfounded, questioning what exactly the demon means by needing a fitting vessel. The entity reminisces about Wellen, noting that no one else even held a candle to his sheer talent. This lack of a proper host was just the first omen of the bloodline's inevitable trash-tear decline. Leon falls silent, processing the harsh truth about his ancestors' failures. While planning his next move, Leon nods and decides to take the ancient entity's word for it since the truth is finally out. Our boy admits that the weak suffering defeat during times of war is just an unchanging universal law. The demon asks if that cold logic is truly how he came to terms with his father's execution. Leon bluntly replies that it makes no difference because there was nothing special about his father's pathetic passing. He pauses for a moment, clearly weighing the heavy burden of his family's trashier legacy and his future. Looking the demon in the eye, he asks for a favor, assuming some loyalty remains to his house. The entity just scoffs at the request, making it clear that a demon never deals in petty favors. He explains that favors are for the weak, so they must refer to their business as a pact. Leon doesn't even blink, immediately pivoting to propose a formal deal to obtain the forbidden power of necromancy. The demon's gaze intensifies, intrigued by the young patriarch's willingness to trade everything for a bit of strength. Leon gets straight to the point, asking if the entity actually has the juice to grant him power. The demon just huffs, mocking our boy for having the audacity to question a literal lord of hell. It stares him down, wondering if this kid's potential is even worth the legendary weight of such power. Leon doesn't flinch, arguing that a talentless peon wouldn't even survive a conversation with a lofty demon. Most trashier humans would have their mana drained and mind shattered just by standing in this presence. Since he's still breathing and sane, Lion figures he must possess at least a modicum of true potential. The demon actually seems impressed, noting that the young patriarch isn't just talk and possesses genuine grit. It reminds him once more that there are no favors here, only a binding and dangerous pact. Leon agrees confidently, stating that he definitely has something valuable to offer the demon in exchange. The ancient entity watches him closely, ready to see if the boy is truly cut from the same cloth. The ancient entity erupts into a booming laugh, clearly finding our boy's bold claims absolutely hilarious. It finally agrees to the pact, officially addressing Lion as the young lord of the necromancer's bloodline. Leon doesn't even blink, simply asking what kind of steep price the demon intends to demand. The beast lets out a wicked, toothy grin, savoring the moment before dropping the heavy truth. It growls that the cost for this power will be nothing less than every facet of his being. Our boy takes a silent second to process the weight of losing his soul to this monster. Instead of fear, a smirk grows as Lion claims he'd gladly surrender his meager existence for strength. Even the legendary demon flinches, clearly dumbfounded by the sheer madness and resolve in the kid's eyes. Meanwhile, the remaining vassals of the house gather in a cold, tense room to discuss their future. One of the elders clears his throat, preparing to address the grim reality they all now face. Kirchhoff kicks off the meeting by bringing up Lion, clearly ready to play some dirty politics. He claims the young patriarch is basically a figurehead with zero authority to make the big calls. The room goes quiet as the vassals realize they're witnessing a blatant power grab in real time. Asserting his status as the closest kin, Kirchhoff prepares to shove the kid aside for the family's sake. He offers to take full charge as the house steward, waiting for the vultures to chime in. One trash-tier vassal immediately agrees, calling our boy a mere pup who isn't even of age yet. He insists that leaving the fate of their house to an unworthy child is a recipe for disaster. Kirchhoff looks satisfied, thinking he successfully convinced the room that Lion is completely useless. But then a mustached elder speaks up, reminding everyone that Lion is the only direct blood descendant. He warns that violating the laws of lineage is a dangerous precedent that could destroy them all. Shell snaps that tradition is useless if their entire bloodline is about to be erased from history. He reminds the room that the Sylvester armies are currently marching to tear their house apart. Kirchhoff admits he won't die for a clueless kid and plans to prioritize his own skin first. Suddenly, the mustached elder slams the table, calling them all ungrateful jackals for betraying the late lord. He declares that he won't stand by while Kirchhoff tries to steal our boy's rightful inheritance. The elder silently begs the late Lord Rune for guidance. Determined to protect the Marba's legacy, Kirchhoff just smirks, finding the old man's sudden burst of backbone to be quite amusing. He acknowledges that the young patriarch actually has one loyal dog left in this den of vipers. Shell stares him down, demanding the elder speak plainly about what he's actually trying to achieve. He questions if that loyalty is enough to save a house that's already halfway in the grave. Shell mocks the old man, claiming he is far too dull to see that the game is already over. As he steps forward, the sheer weight of his presence begins to suffocate the remaining loyalists in the room. He addresses the elder with a sickeningly fake warmth, calling him a dear friend while preparing the killing blow. Kirchhoff leans in close, offering what he calls sage advice, while subtly asserting total dominance over the broken man. Suddenly, a dark and menacing mana begins to seep from his hand, sending a chilling message to everyone present. He drops the act entirely, asking if they really thought he gave a single damn about their pathetic opinions. The elder breaks into a cold sweat, finally realizing that every single move was part of Kirchhoff's twisted design. Shell warns him to choose his next words carefully, reminding him that his family's lives are on the line. He turns to the rest of the trash-tier nobles, declaring they are all gathered for a single grim purpose. It is time to make a dirty choice, one he claims is the only way to save their house. Kirchhoff tells the elder not to block their survival, and simply let his superior wisdom take its course. The broken vassal realizes he was just a pawn and begs the late Lord Rune for some mercy. Meanwhile, our boy Layan stands before the massive devil Marbas, who looms over him like a living nightmare. Layan doesn't even flinch, meeting the ancient demon's gaze with the stoic intensity of a true Marbas leader. The demon admits things are going well, though there's one major problem with their current soul contract. As dark mana swirls around them, Lion listens as the beast explains the consequences of their new bond. Because the subject of the pact changed, the demon explains his true power is now being severely curtailed. It sneers that Leon's father was naive, but at least the old man had a decent mana pool. Our boy realizes that demons need to suck mana from their contractors just to keep their powers active. He bluntly asks the beast what it expects him to do to solve this little energy crisis. The beast snaps its claws, deciding they need to be stingy with Lion's mana for the time being. With a burst of dark energy, the massive demon shrinks into a tiny fluffy ball of fur. Leon admits the logic makes sense, even if he's looking at a literal puffball. Now, our boy can't help but remark that the terrifying devil now looks like a common, adorable house pet. The demon snaps back, threatening to shred Leon's face if he ever calls it adorable again. Leon isn't intimidated at all, simply noting that a pet that bites won't do for his needs. Ignoring the sass, the small beast starts walking off and tells Lion it's time for them to depart. It reminds our boy of his goal to reach the same heights as the legendary Well and Von Marbus. To reach that level of power, the demon suggests Lion must literally retrace the founders' ancient footsteps. Lion considers the proposal, realizing that following the old path is the only way to true strength. Under the pale moonlight, the demon declares they are heading straight for the hidden shrine of the Marbus progenitor. It warns our boy that the journey is lethal. Questioning if he actually has the stomach to risk his life, Lion is just dumbfounded, wondering why this little puffball keeps doubting his resolve after everything he has endured. The demon simply shakes its head, clearly unimpressed by Lion's words. As it prepares to move out, it decides to lead the way, challenging its young contractor to keep up if he is truly capable. They venture deep into the dark woods, where the heavy atmosphere of the family's ancient legacy begins to settle. Lion recognizes the area as the Mistwoods, a place steeped in the history and secrets of House Marbus. The demon confirms his suspicion, noting the forest acts as a lethal labyrinth for anyone lacking their specific bloodline. Our boy recalls his father's words about how only the rightful patriarch is permitted to enter the secret shrine. Turns out every previous head failed the trial because they lacked the most fundamental requirement of all. The demon explains that only those wielding the abyss's purest black mana can pierce through this lethal fog with a simple gesture of its paw. The little puffball begins to manipulate the surrounding ancient energy. They reach the shrine's entrance, and the demon tells our boy it's finally time to start the trial. As they descend into the cold darkness, the weight of his ancestors' failures hangs heavy in the air. A spectral voice echoes through the halls, granting the young descendant permission to tread where many have died. Every step deeper into the stone labyrinth feels like walking directly into the jaws of a waiting beast. Suddenly, the demon stops and warns Lion that he must face the upcoming horrors entirely on his own. It flashes a smug grin, clearly curious to see if the new patriarch is actually cut from different cloth. Before leaving, the puffball offers one final tip, insisting he must obey the Necronomicon's every command at all times. The cursed book pulses with a sinister light, its central eye watching Lion's every move with eerie hunger. Devil Marbus snickers, promising this path leads straight to the ultimate reward of necromancy. The cold stone floor beneath them feels like a graveyard for those who failed before. Our boy marches forward while the floating book and the smug puffball follow his lead. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes through the hall, making Lion freeze in his tracks. He peers into the oppressive darkness, sensing that something is lurking just out of sight. Green flames erupt from a nearby torch, casting a sickly supernatural glow across the stone. In the distance, a pack of savage monsters begins to growl, hungry for fresh meat. Leon hears a muffled cry for help, realizing he isn't the only living soul down here. Turns out the monsters have a captive girl gagged and bound. Waiting for their next meal, he grabs the pulsing book, knowing the trial is finally about to get bloody. Leon flips through the ancient pages, searching for the dark power he was promised. The text reveals the Necronomicon, a divine relic meant to unlock his family's maximum potential. Our boy stares at the first secret, realizing it holds the key to reanimating the dead. He looks down the torch-lit corridor where the heavy silence is about to be broken. Suddenly, a pack of trash-tier monsters lunges from a dark. Hungry for a fresh kill, Leon remains unfazed, his sharp green eyes tracking every move of the savage beasts. The book's instructions are clear. He must start by taking the life of a living being. He flips the page again, fully aware that there is no turning back from this path. With a sharp shing, he draws his blade, ready to spill blood for his lineage. His gaze hardens as he prepares to show these creatures why they shouldn't mess with a Marba. A terrified girl lies bound and gagged, her muffled breaths echoing in the damp, dark dungeon. Nearby, a pair of trash-tier orcs growl, their red eyes fixed hungrily on the helpless prey. Our boy steps into the light, dagger in hand, completely unfazed by the monsters surrounding him. A sudden impact shakes the room as the confrontation finally kicks off with a violent burst. One beast lunges forward with a guttural screech, aiming to tear the young patriarch limb from limb. He effortlessly slips past the strike, his sharp green eyes tracking the monster's every clumsy movement. With a swift, practiced motion, he brings his blade around to deliver a lethal, decisive counterattack. A brilliant flash of light follows as his steel bites deep into the creature's thick green hide. The orc hits the floor with a heavy thud, its dark blood staining the cold stone tiles. Leon calmly notes that he finally has his first sacrifice, his heart steady as the trial begins. Amidst the trial, Leon recalls a flashback to a gloomy graveyard standing beside his father, Rune. Run tells our boy to pay close attention to the heavy legacy he's destined to inherit. The kid looks up wondering what entity their great house actually holds in the highest regard. Turns out the answer is simple yet chilling. The Marba clan idolizes death itself. As masters of the undead, Rune explains they must revere the end of life with absolute respect. Little Leon ponders this, his sharp green eyes already showing the weight of his family's dark path. He asks his old man how one can truly revere something as final and terrifying as death. Our boy assumes necromancers just take lives for power, whether they actually want to or not. Run smiles, acknowledging that while they are feared dark mages, there's more to their history than slaughter. He makes it clear that being a powerful necromancer doesn't mean they have to become heartless villains. Run makes Leon promise one thing before the weight of their lineage truly takes hold. He insists that if Leon holds dominion over others, he must grant them a peaceful end. Our boy internalizes this, questioning if he can truly show mercy to every single foe. Fast forward to the trials where Leon faces trash-tier monsters in a damp, dark dungeon. He moves with a chilling calm, his eyes glowing with the latent power of House Marbus. As the orcs close in, Leon prepares to execute the philosophy his father drilled into him. One beast falls with a dull thud, its life snuffed out before it even realizes he moved. He targets the cervical vertebrae with deadly precision, ensuring his enemy feels absolutely no pain. Watching from the sidelines, the fluffy devil Marbus is completely dumbfounded by the kid's skill. The demon wonders if this is just a fluke or a terrifying inborn talent for killing. Devil Marbus snickers, eager to see if Lion is the real deal or just another failure. Our boy knows that taking down the first beast was pure luck, not skill. He realizes these trash-tier goblins are far more devious and shrewd than they look. The monsters surround him, their red eyes gleaming with a primitive hunger for blood. Leon tightens his grip on the blade, his mind racing to find a lethal opening. The pitch-black dungeon makes it nearly impossible for him to judge the uneven ground. To make matters worse, his vision starts to fade as the shadows press in. He notes that the light dies with every kill, forcing him to adapt quickly. Instead of wild swings, he decides to focus on precise, lethal pierces to save energy. He darts forward like a shadow, aiming for the perfect strike to end this. Leon readies his blade, his eyes glowing with the cold, lethal intent of a true Marbasayer. A monster lunges with a guttural roar, but our boy doesn't even blink as he tracks its movement. As the life leaves another foe, a nearby torch flickers and dies, plunging the room into deeper darkness. These trash-tier goblins keep coming, their screeching voices echoing through the cold, damp halls of the trial grounds. He sidesteps a clumsy lunge and carves through flesh, knowing every drop of blood spilled brings him closer. Leon remains eerily calm, his mind calculating the exact distance needed to end this pathetic skirmish quickly. Their blades clash with a sharp ring, but the monster's primitive strength is no match for his technique. He adjusts his grip, feeling the weight of the blade as he prepares for the final decisive movement. With one fluid motion, he delivers a lethal slash that sends goblin blood spraying across the stone floor. Another light vanishes into the void, forcing him to rely on his sharpening senses to survive the night. Leon realizes his eyes are finally adjusting to the pitch-black trial grounds, giving him a much-needed edge. However, his ceremonial dagger is taking a beating from all the constant clashing against these trash-tier monsters. Suddenly, a shrill screech pierces the silence, putting our boy on high alert for the next ambush. A crazed goblin leaps from the shadows, swinging its primitive blade with murderous intent. Leon narrowly avoids the strike, his movements becoming a blur as he calculates his next counterattack. The air whistles as a blade cuts through the dark, aimed directly at the monster's head. He manages to graze the beast, drawing first blood while maintaining his lethal focus. Even the fluffy devil Marbus is left dumbfounded when he sees Lion seemingly toss his only weapon aside. Our boy slips past the creature's guard, choosing speed and positioning over a broken ceremonial blade. With a cold, glowing gaze, he prepares to finish this fight using something far more dangerous than steel. Even the fluffy devil Marba is sweating buckets, wondering if this kid has actually lost his mind. But Leon isn't playing around, lunging forward with a speed that catches the trash-tier monster off guard. He reaches out, his fingers locking onto the hilt of his weapon with lethal precision. Metal clashes against metal as our boy meets the goblin's strike heat-in without flinching. With a heavy stomp, he anchors himself to the ground to generate maximum torque for his next move. He weaves through the beast's clumsy defense, delivering a strike that paints the floor red. Blood splatters across his face, but his glowing eyes remain fixed on the objective with zero remorse. A single blinding horizontal slash tears through the air, effectively ending the creature's miserable existence. As a monster hits the dirt, Lion stands tall, looking like a true heir of the Marba's name. Without wasting a second, he spins on his heel, ready to face whatever other horrors await him. Lion steps over the trash-tier goblin corpses, his eyes scanning for any remaining threats in the dark. He eventually finds a captive girl huddled in the corner, appearing completely helpless and terrified. She looks up with tearful eyes, muffled whimpers escaping from behind the thick rope, gagging her. Our boy doesn't hesitate to reach out and slip the restraint off, finally letting her speak. She immediately starts sobbing and thanks him profusely, claiming that he's the one who saved her life. Her gratitude is cut short when a sudden, sickening sound of metal-piercing flesh echoes through the room. Instead of a warm embrace, Lion drives his blade straight through her chest without a hint of mercy. She gasps in utter confusion, wondering why the boy she just thanked is now ending her life. Blood splatters across the floor as he twists the cold steel, ensuring the kill is clean. Lion simply recalls his father's warning about monsters that mimic humans to lure in their unsuspecting prey. The blade sinks deep, and the sickening sound of metal meeting flesh confirms the kill is final. She lets out a blood-curdling shriek as her human facade begins to crumble under the weight of death. Bleeding out on the cold floor, she realizes our boy isn't the naive hero she hoped to devour. Lion remembers his father's grim lessons in the graveyard, teaching him that deceivers deserve no mercy or peace. He knows that for his family to rise, he must make every traitor feel their victim's absolute despair. With glowing eyes and a cold smirk, he prepares to give this monster a final lesson in true suffering. A green flame flickers wildly in the dark, echoing the screams of those trapped within this brutal trial. The spectral fire suddenly vanishes into the shadows, signaling that another soul has been claimed by the darkness. Meanwhile, far from the blood and grit, a lavish party is in full swing with dancers entertaining the elite. Kershaw laughs like a madman, convinced that the Marba's legacy is finally his to control and exploit. The dancers stroke Kerchal's ego, mocking our boy Leon is nothing more than a soft, baby-faced child. They marvel at how effortlessly he manipulated the Sylvester family to clear his own path to the top. Kjell enjoys the flattery, even if it means acting like a servant to those trash-tier Sylvesters for now. He downs his drink, savoring the taste of victory he believes is already set in stone. To him, Lion is a dangerous liability who would only drag their noble house into total extinction. He bursts into a maniacal laugh. Convinced that his flawless political game has finally crowned him the winner, the celebration continues as he basks in the shallow praise of his companions and subordinates. However, a cautious vassal grows concerned about what the new patriarch plans for Lion's ultimate fate. He warns that the people's deep loyalty to Lion's father might make disposing of the boy quite difficult. Kerchal just leans back with his whiskey, certain that handling the young heir won't be complicated at all. Kerchal smirks, already planning to justify the young heir's demise once the deed is finally done. He looks truly unhinged, reminding everyone that dead men and their sons can't exactly talk back. A trash-tier vassal agrees, noting that necromancy hasn't been seen since the founding patriarch's golden age. The liquor flows as they prepare to wash away the last remnants of the true Mar-based bloodline. Kjell leads a rowdy toast, officially declaring himself the only rightful patriarch of their fallen house. He chugs straight from the bottle, savoring the taste of a victory bought with blood and betrayal. His subordinates follow his lead, far too drunk to care about the family they just sold out. The celebration is a total circus filled with shallow laughter and dancers while the world burns outside. Far from the noise, the real snake in the grass sits quietly in his cold, grand office. Count Alan de Sylvester demands an update, making sure his plan to subjugate the Marba's name stays on track. Alan's scarred subordinate confirms that Kerch is already a pawn, leaving only imperial approval for total war. The Count smirks at how easily everyone fell for his trap, assuming he would stop after one conflict. He treats the entire continent like a game, knocking over pieces as he finds a convenient opening. His man praises his foresight, knowing the Count is always 10 steps ahead of his pathetic rivals. Tapping a portrait, The Count mocks Kjell as a short-sighted dunce who doesn't realize he is being used. He laughs at the thought of House Marba finally crumbling tonight under the weight of a trash-tier traitor. With a wave of his hand, he orders his men to speed up their plans for the final move. Alan relishes the thought of hearing Lion's cries. Eager to finish what he started with the boy's father, deep in the shadows, the cold atmosphere shifts as a torch flickers against the damp stone walls. A bloodstained blade gleams in the dark, signaling that the time for talk is officially over. Our boy is gasping for air, his lungs burning after that life-or-death struggle against the darkness. He stares at the trash-tier monster, questioning if this was truly the final trial in this hellhole. Out of nowhere, a sudden flash of light pierces through the pitch-black hallway. The snuffed-out torches ignite all at once, casting long, dancing shadows across the blood-stained masonry. The fire crackles with a strange energy, signaling that the trial has acknowledged his grim victory. Lion wipes the sweat from his brow, finally allowing himself a small moment to breathe. Even the great Devil Marbas is dumbfounded, clearly impressed by the sheer carnage he just witnessed. The little beast leaps forward, cackling that Leon is cut from the same cloth as the ancient madman. Leon's eyes snap wide as he realizes the trial isn't quite finished with him yet. He loses his footing and hits the floor, his strength failing as he sinks into the gore. Marbas is absolutely hyped, claiming our boy has enough grit to survive a camp full of orcs. The little devil cackles, impressed that Leon didn't hesitate to get a monster despite its perfect human disguise. Leon finally drags himself up, admitting much rather avoid any more run-ins with those trash-tier greenskins. The tiny beast just tilts its head, watching Leon closely as he tries to shake off the lingering exhaustion. Leon knows orcs despise humans above all else, and he isn't looking for a suicide mission just yet. Marbas gets curious, asking what exactly tipped him off that the last monster was working with the others. Our boy goes quiet for a second, his sharp eyes reflecting the cold reality of the trial he's enduring. He points out the simple truth that while every other torch died, one stayed lit like a beacon. The devil is satisfied with that answer, giving him the green light to push deeper into the darkness. Turns out Leon noticed the torches burned a different color the moment they stepped into this hellhole. Leon navigates the corridor, noting how the green glow feels far from natural. He explains that the flames flickered with a sickly light, signaling something sinister. Our boy immediately recognized that specific hue as the unmistakable shade of the dead. As he slaughtered the trash-tier goblins, the torches died out one by one. However, he noticed that despite the massacre, a single flame remained stubbornly lit. That's how he realized the lone monster was still lurking, masquerading as a helpless girl. He knew he couldn't progress until that final threat was put down for good. After the kill, Leon takes a breather while the little beast watches him in silence. The devil is genuinely dumbfounded, calling him cold-blooded for seeing through the trap so easily. Marbas admits he's impressed while Leon just sigh, annoyed that his shirt is ruined yet again. When life is on the line, most people freeze. But our boy is just built different. Leon doesn't waste a heartbeat, acting with a cold efficiency that would make a seasoned assassin blush. He finishes off the last monster, proving he's more than capable of handling these trash-tier threats alone. Marbas stares at him in silence, reassessing the raw potential of the young patriarch standing before him. The devil is genuinely dumbfounded, realizing Leon's talent goes way beyond just having a massive mana reserve. It's becoming clear that the boy is masking a power that could change everything if fully unleashed. The demon can't help but smirk, absolutely thrilled to see what kind of chaos his pupil triggers next. Since the first trial is officially over, Marba brings out a floating grimoire to start the next lesson. The ancient pages flip wildly, glowing with an eerie light as they reveal the next dark requirement to truly master the family philosophy. Leon learns he must now take the life of a living being. Leon taps the ancient book, ready to dive into the next phase of his dark inheritance. The text reveals the second trial requires him to raise the fallen, leaving our boy momentarily stunned. He stares at the cryptic runes, realizing the path of the Marbas family is paved with the dead. It finally clicks that he's expected to command the undead, a power most would fear to touch. He looks over at the trash-tier goblins he just slaughtered, seeing them now as potential tools. A cold realization washes over him as he prepares to cross a line no normal human would. His eyes begin to glow with a predatory light, signaling the awakening of his latent necromantic talent. The little devil confirms his suspicions, telling him to focus his gaze on the corpses littering the floor. Following instructions, Leon channels mana into his eyes to see the hidden connections between life and death. As the grimoire pulses with energy, he searches for the ethereal threads linking the souls to the void. Lian channels mana from the grimoire, watching as ethereal energy wraps around the fallen, trashier goblins. The little devil explains that in their world, these shimmering threads are known as death lines. Our boy realizes these lines act as a bridge, connecting souls between this world and the next. The mentor confirms his theory and prepares to show him how to manipulate these tethers of existence. With a quick flick, the devil explains how to separate a lingering soul to revive its spirit. Suddenly, the corpses begin to Kaken's mana breathes a twisted new life into their bodies. Glowing marks appear on their foreheads, signaling their reanimation as mindless servants of the Marba's bloodline. The monsters stand tall once more, their eyes burning with a predatory and unnatural hunger. The devil tells him to observe carefully as he prepares to demonstrate their absolute obedience. One of the reanimated goblins lunges forward, proving that the dead make for much better soldiers. Lian remains unfazed as the reanimated goblin swings, witnessing the results of the branding process firsthand. The devil explains that this specific brand is what tethers the monster's soul to its new master. Though other methods exist, this is the only way to force these mindless beasts into absolute submission. Our boy stands tall, observing the puppet and realizing the true power of the Marbas bloodline. The mentor decides it's time for Lion to test his own mana and attempt the reanimation himself. However, Lion pauses, a heavy question about the limits of necromancy weighing on his mind. He remembers that human souls are far more stubborn and difficult to bind than those of mere monsters. With a chilling look in his eyes, he asks if he is finally strong enough to reanimate humans. The devil realizes Lion already has a target, sensing the boy's growing thirst for a very specific vengeance. The demon smirks, eager to know which unfortunate wretch is about to be denied the peace of death. Leon finally names the target of his wrath. Kirchel von Marbas, the man who betrayed his own blood. Our boy hasn't forgotten that his only uncle is the snake responsible for his family's ruin. Meanwhile, the estate halls echo with the hollow laughter of those celebrating a stolen legacy. Kjell is living it up, surrounded by wine and women while he revels in his newfound power. The party is in full swing as these trash-tier nobles indulge in every luxury they didn't earn. Clinking his glass, Kirchel mocks his late brother, calling the former patriarch a fool for his principles. He truly believes he is a genius of opportunity. Convinced that his life is finally smooth sailing, his scarred subordinate agrees, noting that they only need to remove the final heir to secure everything. The henchman reminds his master that the weight of the Marba's name is finally within their grasp. Kjell just sneers, claiming that murdering a mere boy like Lian won't be a problem at all. Kjell is having the time of his life, demanding everyone drink to celebrate his stolen victory. Suddenly, a heavy vibration rattles the room, catching the trash-tier noble completely off guard. A support cable snaps with a sharp crack, sending a massive chandelier plummeting toward the floor. Glass shatters everywhere as the dancers scream in terror, their festive night turning into a chaotic nightmare. Kirchall is dumbfounded, wondering how any force could bypass the estate's powerful magical artifacts. He narrows his eyes, sensing that this isn't just some freak accident, but a deliberate act of war. The coward tells his companion to shut up, desperately trying to listen for any signs of an intruder. He shouts into the darkness, convinced that no soul in the territory would dare challenge his authority. His heart nearly stops when a familiar voice mocks his arrogance. Asking what gave him such a notion, our boy Leon finally steps into the light, his glowing eyes promising a debt paid in full. Kirchel smirks, finally realizing that the intruder is none other than the nephew he thought was long gone. He signals his trash-tier goons to surround the boy, mocking Lion's status as the house's downtrodden patriarch. Our boy Leon doesn't flinch, his glowing eyes fixed on the man who betrayed his entire bloodline. He calmly reminds his uncle that the true patriarch of House Marbas has finally returned to claim his due. Kirchall tries to play it cool, asking what business brings a stray back at such a late hour. Lian fires back that a lord never needs a reason to visit a mere vassal or subject. The trader's composure cracks as he glares at the boy. Realizing Lion isn't the weakling he remembers, he spits out that Lion is far from worthy of the title he so boldly claims to hold. Kjell mockingly asks if the boy is scared of losing the seat he hasn't even truly sat in yet. He laughs like a madman, reminding Leon that his father isn't around to save his skin this time. Our boy reaches out, pulling back the veil to reveal the truth he's been hiding. He knows deep down that in this nest of vipers, he's the only one he can trust. Kerch just laughs, mocking the kid for being dumb enough to walk into a trap all alone. Leon fires back that his uncle is the one being bold by thinking he's solo today. The traitorous uncle sneers, demanding to know what kind of nonsense the boy is trying to pull. Suddenly, the floor begins to tremble as a suffocating pressure forces the old man to stagger back. Kerchel's heart sinks as he realizes this isn't some trash tier spell, but pure magic from the abyss. He senses a chilling darkness, so deep it makes his own petty schemes look like child's play. His eyes widen in pure terror as a horrifying realization finally starts to dawn on him. Two hideous, undead goblins manifest from the gloom, proving our boy is far from being alone. Leon steps forward, his calm demeanor, a sharp contrast to the suffocating aura filling the room. He confirms the obvious, letting the old man know these monsters are his loyal undead servants. Kirkall is completely dumbfounded, realizing the kid has surpassed even his late brother's peak potential. Our boy reminds him that their house was always meant to be a clan of elite necromancers. The traitorous uncle grits his teeth, his face contorting with a mix of pure envy and desperation. He loses his mind and orders his guards to slaughter those unsightly abominations immediately. The masked subordinates swarm in, their blades drawn as they try to overwhelm the boy with numbers. Leon remains unfazed as a blade swishes past, his sharp eyes tracking their every pathetic move. Suddenly, an undead goblin darts forward, its movements far too fast for any normal human to track. A heavy clang echoes as the summon blocks a strike, proving these aren't just some trash-tier puppets. One trash-tier subordinate is caught off guard when the summon actually fights back with terrifying elite precision. He tries to regain his footing, but the undead goblin is already closing the distance with murderous intent. A single clean arc of dark mana slices through the air, leaving no room for a counterattack. The masked man can only stare in horror as blood splatters across his vision, ending his pathetic life. Shell watches as men drop like flies, the heavy thud of bodies echoing through the cold, silent hall. The traitorous uncle is visibly shaken, his smug composure finally crumbling as he witnesses this nightmare firsthand. Our boy's summon is a blur of motion, tearing through the remaining guards like they're nothing but paper. With glowing red eyes, the monster continues its relentless assault, proving it's far superior to any living soldier. Frozen in pure terror, Kerchel can only stammer out that his own nephew has become a literal monster. Even amidst the chaotic clashing of blades, the old man realizes that something is fundamentally wrong with this fight. Kerchel is completely dumbfounded, realizing that the carnage unfolding before him is anything but normal. Desperate to regain control, he begins channeling his own dark mana into a concentrated sphere of energy. The traitorous uncle finally connects the dots. Realizing his nephew is actually wielding the forbidden art of necromancy, he can't wrap his head around how a supposed failure could master a power lost time. The dark energy crackles in his hand as he prepares to strike back against the rising tide of death. Every fiber of his being is screaming in denial as he faces the overwhelming pressure of Lion's presence. He bellows in rage, calling Lion's display a pathetic mockery of their founding patriarch's legendary strength. Our boy just stares back with cold eyes, asking if it's really that strange for the true patriarch to command the dead. Kerchal loses it, screaming that necromancy is dead and buried, something even Lion's father never managed to grasp. He refuses to believe a trashier brat could be any different, swearing he won't entertain such nonsense for another second. Lion realizes words are useless and decides it's time to provide some undeniable physical proof. Our boy stares him down, warning his uncle that continuing this path will only lead to ruin. With a flick of his wrist, the air grows heavy as his undead monsters emerge from shadows. These trash-tier creatures snarl with a hunger that only a true master of the dark arts could command. They dash forward with a terrifying screech, acting as the physical manifestation of the family's ancient curse. Kerchel is completely dumbfounded as he realizes he's been surrounded by the very things he claimed were dead. He struggles to keep his composure, desperately condensing his mana into a single frantic strike. Screaming for the beast to return to the abyss, he unleashes a desperate wave of purple energy. The blast whams into the summons, momentarily slowing the tide of Lion's overwhelming necromantic pressure. Even as one monster begins to crumble, the traitor realizes he's just delaying the inevitable. Shell tries to maintain his smug facade while desperately gathering dark mana to fend off the approaching nightmare. However, the undead goblin barely notices the strike, its skull cracking as it continues its relentless advance. The creature lets out a piercing screech, signaling that it has no intention of letting the traitor escape. It lunges forward with terrifying speed, fueled by the necromantic power Leon reclaimed from his family's trial. Kershaw is left completely dumbfounded when he sees his desperate attack fail to even slow the beast down. He frantically calls for his subordinates to intervene, but his voice only echoes through the empty hall. A cold sweat breaks out as he realizes he's been abandoned by everyone he used to seize power. Looking down, he sees the severed heads of his subordinates rolling across the floor, proving they were useless. Cursing his fate, he gathers a final surge of purple mana. Refusing to go down without a fight, he unleashes a desperate blast against the monster, hoping this last-ditch effort can somehow save his life. Kershaw realizes his magic is barely better than a novice. As the undead close in for the kill, he screams about betrayal, but the booze in his system makes his threat sound utterly pathetic. One of the goblins lunges, and our boy's trashier uncle is too slow to avoid the strike. The jagged blade slices through the air, aimed right for the man who sold out his family. It sinks deep into his shoulder, and the traitor finally feels the sting of his own failure. He lets out a pained cry, realizing his borrowed power was never enough to stop a true monster. Blood splatters onto the cold stone floor as his life begins to leak away in the dark. Desperate to survive, he tries to manifest a final orb of mana with his trembling, gloved hand. The spell shatters before it can even form, leaving him completely dumbfounded by his own weakness. Gasping for air, he asks Lion how he could turn against family when they're cut from the same cloth. Leon steps forward, recalling a history book he once read with his father about the continent's bloody past. He notes how history only cares about victors and the vanquished, separated by the cold gaze of hindsight. Kershaw huffs in disbelief, asking if his boy really thinks he's in any position to give a lecture. Our boy admits that despite his lack of emotions, he still hasn't fully grasped the weight of those words. The traitorous uncle can only gasp for air as his wounds bleed out, his arrogance finally starting to crumble. Leon looms over him, explaining that the book taught him one thing: forgiveness is a privilege reserved for winners. He reminds Kershaw that he was a victor once, back when he chose survival over his own family's blood. It was that same cowardice that led him to stab Lion's father in the back just to save himself. Driven to madness, the trash-tier uncle screams for him to shut his mouth. Unable to face his own sins, addressing him by his full title one last time, Leon promises that there will be no mercy, only suffering. Leon raises the family grimoire, declaring he will always cherish the day of his uncle's pathetic defeat. Our boy coldly promises that his final punishment will be stripping away the man's very future. He unleashes his reanimated monsters, showing no hesitation as they leap forward to finish the job. Invoking the Marba Patriarch's name, Leon delivers a final strike that leaves the traitorous uncle utterly dumbfounded. A heavy thwack rings out as the blow connects, silencing the trash-tier uncle's screams forever. Shell's hand flops onto the floor, his life fading as he pays the price for his betrayal. Even the little devil is shocked, remarking that Lion's cold brutality would make even Satan feel uneasy. The spirit wonders how a novice can command the undead with the skill of a veteran necromancer. Leon stands over the corpse, contemplating the dark path he's chosen. While the grimoire floats nearby, suddenly, our boy has a realization that catches him off guard, breaking his stoic composure for a second. Our boy Leon smirks, having just cooked up a scheme that's bound to cause some serious chaos. Even the little devil looks concerned, wondering if this new plan is actually amusing or just plain terrifying. Meanwhile, the remaining Marba's vassals gather in the council chamber, completely unaware of the storm heading their way. One elder vassal grumbles about being summoned for yet another meeting so soon. Clearly annoyed by the disruption, he looks around and asks if anyone actually knows why the trashier uncle called for this urgent gathering. The blonde nobleman admits he's just as clueless, suggesting they wait for the rest of the council. The bald vassal isn't laughing, though, as he feels a cold sweat breaking over this sudden, ominous summons. His hands tremble as he imagines House Sylvester breaking the peace treaty to wipe them out. While they're vulnerable, the elder tries to shut down the paranoia, insisting that no great house would be brash enough to attack. He reminds them that war requires royal approval, finally getting the panicked blonde noble to settle down. The vassals decide to stay put, hoping the trashier uncle will clear up their doubts once he arrives. Suddenly, the heavy doors of the council chamber shut with a heavy clunk, sealing everyone inside. Our boy Leon finally makes his entrance, his presence casting a long, suffocating shadow over the entire room. He walks past the stunned blonde noble, who can barely process the sudden shift in the room's atmosphere. The elder vassal starts sweating bullets, whispering frantically about why the boy is here instead of Kerchel. As Leon's boots click against the floor, they wonder if he is actually bold enough to challenge the usurper. They cannot fathom what business the rightful heir has here, especially with the family's future hanging by a thread. Leon's eyes glow with a predatory light, signaling that he is no longer the weak kid they once knew. Standing at the head of the table, he asks if they were really expecting to see his uncle instead. He grips the patriarch's chair, coldly informing the dumbfounded council that Kerchel will not be making it today. Leon clarifies that his uncle isn't just late, but physically incapable of showing his face. One of the vassals stammers, clearly needing more detail on what being unable to attend actually means. Leaning back into the patriarch's seat, our boy simply drops the bombshell that Kjell is dead. The blonde nobleman and his bald colleague freeze, their minds racing as they process the impossible news. Leon doesn't stop there, casually admitting that he was the one who personally ended the traitor's life. He stares them down with those predatory eyes, asking if any other council member wants to speak up. The blonde noble is visibly shaken, realizing the power dynamic in the room has shifted for good. Fear spreads like a plague through the room as the vassals realize they are trapped with a monster. Finally finding his voice, the blonde noble slams the table and demands a real explanation for this madness. He rants about mourning their predecessor, but Leon just watches him like a piece of trash-tier entertainment. The brown-haired noble stammers that even if Lion is the patriarch, he still owes them a proper explanation. Our boy just stares back with those cold, glowing eyes, completely unimpressed by their desperate trash-tier barking. He flatly states that Kjell was nothing more than a traitor to the Marba's name, making everyone flinch. Leon details how the man betrayed his father and leaked vital secrets to their enemies, and how Sylvester, the blonde noble, breaks into a cold sweat as Leon reveals Kerchaw's pathetic plan to usurp the clan's leadership. With a mocking tilt of his head, Lion wonders why they are so eager to defend a dead snake. He looks around the massive hall, pointing out their misplaced loyalty to a man who is already gone. The blonde noble realizes that Kerchel's absence from his own meeting proves Leon isn't just bluffing about the kill. The bald vassal is dumbfounded, wondering how a veteran like Kerchel could be taken out by this young kid. Panic sets in as another noble realizes they need to stop mourning and start worrying about their own survival. The brown-haired elder panics, realizing Leon might have taken out Kerchel without any help at all. He springs up in shock, desperately claiming he had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. To save his own skin, he starts cursing the dead traitor and wonders if Lion possesses forbidden magic. The blonde noble gulps hard. Feeling the weight of the room shifting against them, he immediately jumps on the bandwagon, swearing he never knew about the old weasel's disgusting plans. Leon just taps his fingers on the table, letting the silence eat away at their remaining nerves. With a cold glare, our boy tells them to shut their mouths and listen. He explains that even if they weren't traitors, their pathetic negligence is still a capital offense. The brown-haired elder realizes they've been baited into a trap where every answer leads to death. Still, the bald vassal tries to play it cool, asking for actual proof of Kerchaw's betrayal. Leon remains unfazed as the bald vassal tries to frame him for murdering an innocent man. He stands up, noting that their predictable reactions were exactly what a certain someone had already foreseen. Our boy shoots a quick glance at his demonic companion, who seems to find this drama hilarious. The tiny demon just snickers, clearly enjoying how these trash-tier nobles are squirming in their seats. Leon's eyes flare with a predatory glow as he decides it's time to end this pathetic charade. He whips out a grimoire and prepares to give them the undeniable proof of betrayal they requested. Violent waves of dark mana erupt, making the terrified vassals realize they've pushed their luck too far. Claiming his right as the true heir, Lion prepares to drag a damned soul back to this realm. The shadows swallow the room, leaving the elders dumbfounded as the air grows heavy with death. Suddenly, a green-skinned goblin leaps from the darkness, serving as the first witness to Leon's absolute power. The goblins swarm out of the shadows, ready to tear apart anyone who dares question their master. Our boy channels his mana into the ancient grimoire, the pages glowing with a forbidden, eerie light. These trash-tier nobles can't believe their eyes, recognizing the terrifying incantation used to command the dead. Suddenly, the air fills with the sickening sound of snapping bones as a familiar corpse begins to stir. Pull is absolutely dumbfounded, wondering if Lion has truly mastered the house's long-forgotten and most dangerous magic. His eyes widen in pure terror as the reality of their situation finally starts to sink in. Leon calmly calls forth the soul of his traitorous uncle, intending to make him answer for his sins. The reanimated Kerchal staggers forward, a hollow shell forced to obey the will of the new patriarch. The elders are shaking, unable to comprehend how a mere boy could possess such overwhelming necromantic authority. Leon just stares back coldly, admitting he's getting pretty tired of hearing the same stupid questions over and over. Leon reminds them that necromancy is the very foundation of his house. As his summons begin their hunt, the blonde vassal loses his mind, screaming for the others to run before they are all slaughtered. The bald noble curses his luck, desperately trying to rush out of the room to save his skin. Another elder grabs his companion, frantically, urging him to move faster. As the shadows close in, his heart stops when the man he was holding suddenly slumps over, soaked in fresh blood. He stands frozen in horror as the body hits the floor, blood spurting everywhere in the silent hall. Turning in a blind panic, the man begs for anyone to help him escape this waking nightmare. The blonde noble is reduced to crawling on the floor, pathetic and begging for mercy he doesn't deserve. He coughs up blood, realizing that his status as a high-ranking vassal won't save him from this carnage. As a dark shadow looms over him, he looks up and realizes our boy is finally standing there. Leon stares them down with glowing eyes, making it clear that this little reunion is far from over. He opens his grimoire, commanding these trash-tier nobles to finally listen to their patriarch's final words. Suddenly, the reanimated corpse of Kerchal looms over the cowering vassals like a vengeful shadow. The undead traitor's bones crack and pop as he struggles to maintain his gruesome, lurching form. With a sickening gnash of his teeth, the corpse prepares to spill the family's darkest secrets. Our boy demands to know if anyone in the room was actually innocent of his uncle's vile deeds. Kerchal's jaw unhinges with a wet crunch as the necromantic magic forces the truth from his lungs. The former traitor admits that every single person who served the last patriarch turned against him. He confesses that not a single soul was ignorant of his duplicity, sealing the fate of the survivors. Leon simply nods, satisfied that the trash has finally taken itself out by admitting their collective guilt. One blonde noble loses his mind, screaming for mercy and begging the new patriarch for forgiveness. Another traitorous rat offers to confess every single crime just to keep his head on his shoulders. The bald vassal desperately begs for a chance to prove his loyalty while a goblin looms nearby. Their eyes are filled with pure terror as they realize there is no escape from this judgment. As the room fills with the screams of the guilty, Leon stands tall before his grim destiny. Our boy looks on with cold indifference, completely unfazed by the pathetic display of these trash-tier nobles. He reaches out his hand, ready to finalize the ritual that will change his bloodline forever. Leon formally proclaims his authority as the rightful patriarch before the remnants of the terrified council. He firmly grasps the ancient grimoire, a cursed relic holding the true power of his fallen ancestors. With a book in hand, he declares that the dark art of necromancy has finally been restored. Leon stands over the trash-tier nobles he just slaughtered, his family's grimoire hovering like a cold, silent witness. Our boy looks down with total indifference, already planning how to rebuild his house from these bloody ruins. He suddenly asks where Sir Pullen is hiding, causing a nearby servant to flinch in absolute terror. The poor guy peeks from behind a curtain, his soul practically leaving his body at Lion's icy gaze. He stammers that Polland was dragged to the dungeons under charges of sedition by the previous regime. Lion doesn't waste a second and commands the trembling man to lead him to the cells immediately. His heavy footsteps echo through the silent manor, signaling that the true master of Marbus has finally returned. He halts before the exit, his presence alone making the air thick with the scent of impending death. With eyes glowing a predatory yellow, he tells the remaining staff they should flee while they still can. He warns that he won't be held accountable for the carnage that follows once his ritual truly begins. Leon's warning leaves the remaining subordinates trembling, hoping they're actually smart enough to run for their lives. Meanwhile, in a lavish office, the news of the chaos hasn't quite reached the top players yet. A high-ranking official strides confidently through the room, his every step oozing arrogance and cold calculation. The butler addresses Count Allen to Sylvester as his patriarch. Acknowledging his absolute authority in this domain, he hands over a sealed letter, likely containing the latest updates on the political chessboard. Count Allen takes the message, his sharp blue eyes already scanning for any advantage he can exploit. He breaks the seal with practiced ease, eager to see if his schemes are finally bearing fruit. As he reads, his expression shifts, processing the weight of the information regarding the fallen Marbus family. A trash-tier smirk creeps across his face. Realizing everything is going exactly according to his twisted plan, he gloats that even the imperial household has abandoned House Marba, leaving them ripe for total destruction. The scarred subordinate scoffs, claiming House Marbos has nothing left but an empty name and faded glory. He continues his mockery, laughing at their pathetic lack of soldiers and resources in the capital. Count Alan agrees, noting that their empty pockets are even more embarrassing than their tiny army. He taps the desk impatiently, deciding it's finally time to move forward with their original scheme. The Count gloat that the upcoming war of noble houses will be the final nail in their coffin. His subordinate pounds his chest, swearing on his life that he won't fail the mission. Alan leans in with a cold stare, asking if there's even a slim chance of them losing. The lackey explains that unless a legendary necromancer magically appears, their victory is absolutely guaranteed. A trash-tier smirk spreads across the Count's face as he imagines his rival's total downfall. He snickers to himself, fully convinced that this war is already over before it even started. Deep in the dungeon, a desperate cry for the young master rings out through the damp stone corridors. Pol drops to his knees, begging for mercy after letting the uncle's trash-tier schemes ruin the family. Our boy Leon watches coldly as the man gravels, claiming he deserves nothing but a swift execution. He keeps his gaze fixed on the vassal, his green eyes searching for any sign of hidden agendas. Turns out Poland was actually the only one brave enough to stand against the uncle's bloody coup. Knowing he needs a solid team, Leon tells him to rise. While giving his shoulder a firm squeeze, he explains that there's still plenty of work left, and he definitely needs the man's help. Poling just blubbers like a child, questioning what a pathetic wretch like him could possibly offer the house. Things get pretty awkward when Lion realizes the guy smells so bad that flies are literally circling him. Lion tells him to go take a long bath before reporting to the Patriarch's office for duty. Leon turns away, telling the man they will discuss the finer details once things have settled down. Pol is practically glowing with gratitude, overwhelmed that he is finally being acknowledged by his true lord. He shouts a pledge of eternal feeling as our boy heads off to plan his next move. Standing before the massive windows, Leon is joined by the deceptively cute and fluffy Devil Marbus. The little beast hops onto his shoulder, acting more like a common pet than an ancient demon. It gives him a lick, silently, reminding Lion of the Dark Blood Pact, binding them together forever. The demon then asks what his next move will be in this high-stakes political game. It leans in close, reminding him that every choice from here on belongs solely to the contractor. Pullen, no longer looking like a trash-tier hobo, flinches when he hears the master's daring strategy. He worries that impersonating his dead uncle to trick the Sylvesters is an incredibly perilous mission. Pol breaks out in a cold sweat, doubting if anyone could truly mimic his late uncle's twisted presence. Our boy just smirks and asks if his current trick will be enough to settle those nerves. With a swish of his grimoire, a thick purple miasma begins to swirl and take a terrifying shape. The dark energy coalesces, slowly stitching together the familiar features of the man who betrayed the family. In a flash, the dead man blinks, standing there as a perfect hollow puppet of his former self. The undead Kirk looms over the poor vassal, radiating an aura of unholy power that freezes his blood. Pollen is absolutely dumbfounded that Leon could be so cold-blooded as to turn his own kin into a tool. Looking at the young patriarch, he realizes Lion is cut from a completely different cloth than his ancestors. Tears of relief and awe well up as he finally accepts that the legendary necromancy has truly returned. Leon simply confirms the truth with a chilling calm, ready to unleash his new toy on the world. Pol laments how the heavens were cruel to their house despite the glory of their ancestors' necromancy. He quickly clears his throat, trying to shake off the overwhelming emotion of seeing his master's return. The loyal vassal warns that House Sylvester will eventually spot the fake Shul if they aren't careful. He argues that a regular undead lacks the personality and handwriting to fool the enemy for long. Our boy just stares back coldly, revealing that this isn't some trash-tier undead made from a mere cadaver. It turns out he reanimated a doppelganger, a monster he specifically hunted to serve as the perfect vessel. The creature begins to manifest its power, capable of replicating memories and abilities with terrifying precision. Poland is completely dumbfounded as he realizes Lion has planned for every single detail of this deception. With his secret weapon ready, Lion's gaze hardens as he prepares to dismantle his enemies from within. A sharp shing echoes through the room as the stage is set for a bloody reunion. The torchlight flickers in the damp corridor as the echoes of the recent struggle finally fade away. Our boy huffs heavily, trying to steady his heart rate after nearly falling for a deadly trap. He stands over the body of the girl, his sword lowered now that the threat is neutralized. Leon wipes the sweat from his brow and asks the demon for the name of this creature. The demon identifies the fallen monster as a doppelganger, a master of deception and mimicry. He explains that these foul things can perfectly replicate a victim's memories, appearance, and even their skills. They typically prey on lost travelers, wearing a friendly face to lure their targets into false security. After murdering the original, the monster proceeds to devour every companion until no one is left alive. Lion stares at the corpse, contemplating how such a terrifying ability could serve his own dark purposes. The demon grins, amused that Lion is truly cut from the same ruthless cloth as his ancestor, Wellen. The doppelganger's eyes flare with a sinister glow as the dark energy begins to swirl around her. Our boy watches as the creature's form starts cracking under the weight of his growing necromantic power. The demon mocks the late patriarch for leaving such a twisted gift behind for his sole descendant. Wisps of purple mana cling to the monster, binding its soul to Lion's will as a new servant. Lion stands ready, clutching his grimoire, while the demon observes the successful binding of the shape-shifting creature. Lion looks back and asks the demon if he's actually supposed to feel pleased with this result. The little lion confirms it, knowing this mimicry skill is a total game-changer for their future plans. It turns out this mimic can only copy those Lion has met, and stronger mages are totally off-limits. The demon asks if he's ready to accept these restrictive terms and finalize the contract right now. Despite his raw talent, the demon reminds him he's still just a fledgling in the world of necromancy. The demon warns that trapping his uncle's soul is pointless if he can't maintain the hold long term. Our boy is advised to ditch the estate for now, but he immediately shuts that suggestion down. Leon refuses to turn his back on his bloodline, standing firm as his purple mana begins to flare. He knows that without him, the innocent people will be slaughtered by the trash, tar, invading Sylvester forces. When asked if he'd die for them, Leon's eyes glow with a resolve that leaves the demon dumbfounded. The ancient entity can't understand why he'd possess such a misguided sense of loyalty to his household. Realizing Lion won't budge, the little lion decides they should focus on the more urgent matters at hand. A massive surge of dark energy erupts as the soul of the traitor begins to manifest before them. The demon urges him to finish the job and turn that pathetic wretch into a permanent undead servant. Mortified, it turns out this creature was once a legendary minion under Wellen, making it a top-tier addition. The ancient demon warns that this particular summon is a total handful with a seriously vexing temperament. A blinding flash of purple mana consumes the room as the forbidden ritual reaches its peak. Our boy Leon commands the souls of the dead to heed the call of the Marbot's heir. Thick smoke hisses as a powerful silhouette begins to manifest from the swirling dark energy. The summoned warrior finally stands tall, looking like a top-tier threat cut from a much darker cloth. His eyes glint with a sharp light, signaling that a legendary powerhouse has officially rejoined the living. The little lion immediately thacks him, barkingly, telling the spirit to wake up from his idle slumber. He scolds the spirit for being a fool, demanding he change his form so they can actually understand him. The warrior stands there looking completely dumbfounded while trying to wrap his head around his new reality. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off as he realizes he needs a better way to communicate with his new master. Crow claps his hands together, focusing his spiritual energy to begin the complex transformation process. Dark mana swirls around his body as he sheds his monstrous form for something far more human. He grumbles about being insulted by a mere stray cat, while his facial features start to shift. The little lion loses his mind, screaming that the spirit must have a literal death wish. Our boy Leon watches as the spirit calmly reminds the fuming cat that he is already dead. The transformation is flawless, creating a perfect double that could fool even the sharpest of eyes. Later, Pollen suggests that if they mimic his uncle's habits, they can trick their enemies completely. He vows to handle the details himself, guaranteeing that this high-stakes ruse will actually succeed. Leon gives a satisfied smirk, hearing exactly what he needs to finally secure his family's future. Paul leans in, asking if he might pose one final heavy question to his young patriarch. He warns that the Sylvesters will definitely return, wondering why Leon doesn't just flee to survive. Poland suggests a temporary retreat, hoping they can find a solution.